Hello everyone, welcome again. In this software testing tutorial, we are going to learn what is a defect report and how to write a good defect report. So we'll cover a couple of points around how to write a good defect report, what are the key things that you need to include, and then we'll go into Jira and write the actual report or defect report, and I'll try to cover the good defect report points and how you can write and use that template to write the good defect reports in your projects. So if we talk about the defect report, if you are a completely beginner in software testing, a defect report is a document to communicate the defects or bugs that you find in the application or the software with the developers and other team members. Okay, so it's basically a document, and most of the time it won't be a Word document or any Excel sheet. It will be a issue that you'll raise or a ticket that you raise in a test management tool, which will have defect management functionality, or a defect management tool, standalone defect management tool. So nowadays, mostly, I think majority of the places are using Jira, which has built-in defect management functionality. So we'll be demoing or I'll be walking you through how you can use Jira or how you can raise defect report in Jira or defect in Jira. So the purpose of this particular defect report is to communicate the defects as clearly as possible, right? So say for example, you are testing an application, you found any discrepancy between the expected and actual result. You need to communicate that, and how you will communicate. You can't go ahead and communicate all your defects in a notepad. You can't keep it writing and communicate it verbally. So you have to have certain tool where you can document it, and then that defect needs to follow a certain life cycle, as we have seen in the previous tutorial. So it has to go through a life cycle from opening till closure, so that you can keep track of things, right? So this is the whole purpose of the defect report and what exactly the defect report document is all about. Defect report, you should always keep in mind that it should be written as clearly as possible. You should not include too much detail into the defect. When I say too much detail, it shouldn't be an essay format, right? It should be, it should have enough information so that it is helpful for the developers to go through and replicate or reproduce the issue and fix it. But you should not just keep writing stories in the defect. That's another bad practice when where people think that if they include too much information into the defect, that's a good defect report. But that's not, because people have to read the whole document, and then if could elaborate that whole story into simple steps, that's still equally good. So you have to make sure that you elaborate the key information, but do not write stories into the defect report. That's the first and foremost thing. Defect reports also help stakeholders to basically understand what the severity or the priority should be for the defect and how they need to address those defects into the releases. Okay, so it is not only for the developers, it is basically everyone in the team who might be looking or working within that particular project. They might be looking at the defect report. So writing a good defect report is really, really important, and we'll cover some of the key aspects that you should never forget when you are writing the defect report. Now, if we move to the second section here, so how to write a good defect report. These are some of the key sections you should never forget to include. These are, key sections, but there are many more sections that might be applicable based on the project that you are working on, right? So the first thing is basically the title. Now, defect ID is important thing. So in case in your organization you are still following Excel sheets to communicate defects, you should also include defect ID in that particular case, right? So you should give a proper ID in the Excel sheet. In case you are using tools, which 95% I'm pretty sure if you're working in any organizations, they will be using some sort of tools at least to track the defect, then defect ID will be generated automatically by the tool. So that's the first thing. Then title is very important, description is important. So what title will describe the title of the defect. Now description, you elaborate a defect a little bit so that when people are reading the defect, they understand or they get a gist of that particular defect. Environment of platform is very, very important because there might be multiple test environments, there are staging environments, there are dev environments. So where exactly you have tested that particular application, where have you found that defect? So that environment you need to specify, whether it's in the test environment, and even in the test environment there might be multiple test environments. So which test environment you have found it. Okay. Then build number is another very important thing. So say for example, usually build number or release number would be used here. So if your organization is following the build number terminology, it will be build number, or release terminology, then you will be specifying the release in which you have found it, right? So say for example, release will be something like 10.1.0, 10.1.1, something like that, or any terminology in terms of build or release number. So it could be any terminology that is being followed within the organization. Then the component is another important thing. If there is a relevance of the component, say for example, the defect is very specific to the UI, and you have the UI component in your project that you need to choose, then you select the component as UI component. If it is the database issue, then you select the component as database, right? Then severity is what you as a tester will specify as well, whether it's low, whether it's minor or major. So that severity you need to specify as well, whether it's a blocker defect. So all those you need to identify and specify the severity. Then steps to reproduce are very important, wherein you need to provide step-by-step details how a person or a developer will be able to reproduce that particular defect, right? So that detail is very important. And along with step to reproduce, you also need to provide the test data that you have used. Okay, so you can either provide the test data above the steps to reproduce, or within the steps to reproduce, below the steps to reproduce. That is also very, very important, so that a person who is trying to reproduce that particular defect can use that particular test data that you have provided. If not, they can at least correlate or figure out another set of test data that they can use, which is of similar nature, to reproduce that defect. Then in the expected result, what was the expected result? That detail needs to go. In the actual result, what should be the actual result? That needs to go in the actual results. Attachment is another very important section. So if there are any logs that you have found which have relevant information, error logs, etc., attach those. Screenshots are very important. What were you expecting? If there are any error messages that you got, use those screenshots, take the screenshot and attach those. So these are the key sections of a good defect report that you should never forget to include if these are applicable within your organization. So in this one, say for example, component is not applicable within your organization, you can ignore it. Build will definitely be there, environment will definitely be there, title, description, environment, build number, severity, and rest all are mandatory sort of information that needs to go there in any defect report that you are going to raise. Along with these, there will be many other information. You might be having a section for the test data. You need to fill the test data there. If not, you just provide the test data details into the description or steps to reproduce section itself. You might be having the information to provide the browser details as well, so you can include that into the environment or platform section as well. So depending what type of project you are in, what details need to go in, these are the key details. Along with these, there might be many other details specific to your project or the organization, but these will be mostly common across any project that you go, that you should always include in your defect report, and that will be considered as a good defect report. Now let us go ahead and see a defect report, a sample defect report that I have written. So here the scenario is basically, I've taken a gmail.com Gmail login scenario, and the scenario is when I provide the wrong username and correct password on the Gmail login page and click on login button. In that particular case, I'm not getting any error message. The actual or the expected outcome should be that an error should be displayed that the wrong username has been provided, and I should be on the same login page. So this is the scenario. So in that particular case, when I'm as a tester, I'm testing the application, I'll launch gmail.com, I'll provide wrong username and correct password and click on login page. And after I click on login page, I don't see any error message displayed, and I'm redirected on the login page again. So because I'm not able to see any error message, I went ahead and checked the logs and all other information that is required as a tester to analyze the issue, and I found that this is a valid issue or defect that I need to log. So this is the defect report that I have written. So title, no error message displayed when a wrong username is entered on Gmail login page in Chrome browser. So you can see that in Chrome browser, or I have specified the browser as well where the error message is not displayed, right? So if it is specific to browser, you specify the browser. If it is not, then you can specify all browsers in the description or in the steps to reproduce. Now in the description, I have elaborated the same message a little bit. So when user provides wrong username in username field of gmail.com login and clicks on login button, then user is redirected to login page without any error message, right? So environment is QA. Here it could be QA1, QA2, SIT, ST. So depending on what terminologies are used in your organization, you have to select the environment accordingly. Build, I have hypothetically taken any build, any number there. Severity is low because it's not breaking as such anything. The functionality is working. It's just the error message and it's the testing phase. So I have mentioned the severity as low. Then in the steps to reproduce, if you see, the steps are identified properly, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these steps give you a clear indication that what you have to do in order to reproduce this defect. So launch Gmail on Chrome browser, click on login link, enter wrong username in the username field, and correct password in the password field. Just ignore this off, it's a typo, and click on login button. So now here I will specify the wrong username and the correct password that I have used as well as part of my defect. If there is a security requirement, I'll maybe encrypt it and then share it. Otherwise, I'll provide the test data along with the step as well, right? And then click on login button. And after that, there is expected result. What as a tester I'm expecting as part of these steps. So error message should be displayed, wrong username provided. So this error message should be displayed, but actually there was no error message displayed and the user was redirected to the login screen. And in the attachments, I should be taking the screenshot of no error message being displayed and attach those. Any logs that I found useful, I should also attach those, right? So this is the key information that should go in any defect. Apart from this, if you open the defect template in Jira, you will find a lot more information that you might be required to enter based on the project requirements. Okay, so let's go to Jira, and here so here, to raise a defect, what simply I have to do is I have to simply click on create, and in the create I have to select the project where I have to create the defect. So here this is RCB demo project already selected, and issue type I have to select from the drop down as bug, right? So this issue type has to be bug, and I don't have to worry about the defect ID because this will be generated automatically within the tool. In the summary, if you see, this is same as title. Okay, so whatever we discussed about the title, this is the title. So what I'll do is I'll simply copy or I'll specify the title into this particular summary field. Okay, and then in the description I'll provide the description and other details. Okay, so I'll provide a little bit of description there, and then we'll provide the steps to reproduce below that. Okay, so I'll provide steps to reproduce. We'll format it a little bit, provide the numbers there in the steps to reproduce, and then within the description itself I'll provide expected and actual result. Now within Jira there are no separate fields as such for expected and actual results, so you can specify all of these details in the description field itself. That's how usually we do within the project. In case your organization has customized Jira and there are expected result and actual result fields separately, then you can use those. But most of the time it will be good enough if you provide all these details in the description itself. If there is any test data, you can include the test data here. There are other details, for example build and environment, which we'll provide here as well. The environment, there is a separate field, so I'll provide the environment there. So environment will remove from here, and even for the build there might be a release field available here somewhere. Okay, so environment, there is one field, so I'll include the environment as QA here, and remove build from here. So environment is there. Now rest all, so build as of now I'll keep it here, and also severity I'll keep here. But in actual cases, because this Jira is not customized, so there is only priority at the moment. Severity field is not there. So usually what you will get is you will get another severity field here somewhere as a drop down, and you will also get the build field. Either it will be a free text or a drop down depending how your organization has customized Jira. But all the information that we have discussed in the defect template needs to go there, even if there are fields or there aren't fields. So you can specify all those details in the description field if you can't find the fields here in your company Jira, or you can advise, or you can basically provide a suggestion that those fields can be added in the create issue template of the bug type, so that you have those fields available in your project, right? So once you are done with all the information, if you are doing the agile software development, you have to select the sprints from the drop down as well, but that's a separate discussion altogether. But in terms of defect, we have included all the information: title, description, build, the severity, steps, expected and actual result. If you want to format it to make it a little bit more presentable, you can format, make things bold, and then you can create the issue, right? So now this particular issue has been created, which is of type defect in Jira, which contains all the key information that is required for people to have a look, and they will be easily be able to reproduce this issue. Okay, So attachments I haven't added. Let me remove it. So attachments, what you can do is during the creation itself, you can add the attachment. So here, if you simply drop the files in Jira, the attachments will be added. So any screenshot, any logs can be added. If you have forgot that, you can click on this attachment to attach those files, and all the details and defect report will be available here. And then this can be assigned, or this can be basically, at the moment it is unassigned, then this can be assigned to the test lead, or the test lead will then assign it to developer for, right? So you can see this is the key information, how you have to use the good defect report, or how you can raise the good defect report in Jira. So that's all for the defect report, or what exactly is a defect report, and how to write a good defect report in software. Hope this was helpful. Thank you very much for watching.